It's about that time. Thank you, everyone. Let's not keep the lovely Ida Elina waiting. Please, Elina.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. I would like to present this beautiful instrument for you. First song was from our national forests, the song that is very famous to this instrument, Kantele. This next one the origin stems from our national epic, Kalevala. The lyrics are from Kalevala and the melodies from me. And this tells the old tale of a hero who lost his life at the river of death, but who came back to life thanks to his mother. naisten myötä virtoja vilisten, tunnettuun elämän perille, panalan alan teille. Itse äitille minkeisen saapin rautaisen haravan, lentii tuon elan joelle kohti kosken kohisevan. Veti kerran tuosta toisen elolta, kun sai eteen, saapui pian poikoonsa haravaan rautaiseen. Tuospaan poiko eli, saipaan taakas poiko eli, hyvän lojan iluvalla haravalla harvaksella. Tuospaan poiko eli, saipaan taakas poiko eli, hyvän lojan iluvalla haravalla harvaksella. Tuospaan poiko eli, saipaan taakas poiko eli, hyvän lojan iluvalla haravalla harvaksella. Lauloi emo ehtoisella, tuonen mustalla joella.
Wow. That is what I call a tough act to follow. Thank you so much, Ida, Elina. Shall we have another round of applause for that incredible performance? And thank you, of course, for setting the stage for this morning's session. Good morning. God morgon. Hyvää huomenta. Wonderful. Not many of us are speaking Finnish today. And you'll have to pardon me because when I've got my glasses on, of course, I can't see anyone, but if I take my glasses off, then I can't read anything. So please bear with me. Anyway, hello everyone. Welcome to Aalto University. It's great to see you all here in person as well as our online audience who are joining us for this year's collaboration between the Sustainability Research and Innovation Congress and Finland's Sustainability Science Days here in somewhat summery Helsinki. I think it's improving. I did have my doubts about the weather, but hopefully it won't make a liar of me. I am Denise Wall, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's opening ceremony and plenary. And like you, I'm looking forward to exploring the very topical theme of what a good life for all of us looks like or should look like, and also how we can achieve it without overstepping planetary boundaries. Well, we have got quite a welcoming committee lined up, so let's get straight into the program with introductory remarks from our hosts here at Aalto University, University President, Professor Ilkka Niemelä, and Aalto University Rector, Professor Sari Lindblom. Please join me.
All right, let's have another go. A start that you can remember, I hope. Dear guests, dear participants, honored President Halonen, on behalf of Aalto University, I have a great pleasure to open this Sustainability, Science and Innovation Conference organized in collaboration between the Sustainability Research and Innovation Congress and Finland's Sustainability Science Days. It's also a great honor to host this event on the campus of Aalto University here in Otaniemi. This campus and this building are very fitting to serve as a venue for this conference. The general plan of the campus and also this building have been designed by architect Alvar Aalto more than 60 years ago. The name of Aalto University also was inspired by the life and work of Alvar Aalto. Alvar Aalto's key principles were human centricity in scale and atmosphere, harmony with nature, extensive use of natural light, and continuous innovation and experimentation. I think this hall is a wonderful example of these principles. All aiming at quality of the building, quality of use, and aesthetics that are both groundbreakingly modern but timeless. To design and construct buildings that would be usable, strong, and beautiful, that they would be well taken care of for decades and centuries to come. Very much sustainability and innovation combined already more than 60 years ago. Aalto University is a combination of three fields: technology, business, and art and design. Our campus here in Otaniemi is a unique collaboration hub in Europe. This is one of the largest high-tech concentrations in Europe, with more than 1,000 high-tech companies around the campus. And in the middle of the campus, we have one of the best art and design schools in the world and one of the leading business schools in Europe. This kind of a collaboration hub combining technology, art and design, and business on the same campus cannot be found anywhere else in Europe. And on top of that, the campus forms a very vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem, which makes this a truly special place. Aalto University is committed to promoting sustainable development at all levels, and our purpose is shaping a sustainable future. For us, this means excellent research aiming at breakthroughs in and across our disciplines, sparking the game changers of tomorrow and renewing society with research-based knowledge, creativity, and an entrepreneurial mindset. We want to contribute to innovative solutions to tackle global challenges and recognize well that these kinds of systemic challenges require systemic solutions that are built in collaboration. Together, we must seek solutions that combine economic, ecological, and social sustainability. This conference provides a unique opportunity to learn from each other and develop new ways of addressing global challenges. I would like to thank University of Helsinki for the collaboration with Sustainable Science Days over the last 5 years. Aalto and University of Helsinki complement each other perfectly in terms of disciplines, and together we can form powerful partnerships for systemic solutions. I would also like to thank Future Earth and Belmont Forum for fluent collaboration and for bringing Sustainable Research and Innovation Congress here in Finland. Dear participants, I wish you all an inspiring and rewarding conference and a pleasant stay in Finland. Thank you.
Honored President Halonen, Minister Mykkänen, dear distinguished guests, colleagues and friends. I am honored to open this conference together with University of Aalto. At the University of Helsinki, our work is driven by the vision of creating a fairer, healthier and a more secure world. As a multidisciplinary, broad university, we tackle complex problems from multiple perspectives, forging pathways to solutions and hope. However, we do not journey alone. As mentioned by President Niemelä, we have a long, fruitful collaboration with Aalto University, co-organizing the Sustainability Science Days for the past 5 years. Together, we have built a platform where science accelerates action. Today, this collaboration takes another step as we have joined forces with Future Earth and Belmont Forum and the Sustainability and Research and Innovation Congress. We are privileged to be part of the continuum of SRI Congress and co-organizing the conference for the first time in Europe. In his opening words, President Niemelä went back in time to the 60s and to the origins of this beautiful building. I will walk a little further down in history, all the way back in the year 1640. Almost 4 centuries ago, the history of the University of Helsinki began with a 13-year-old girl, Queen Christina of Sweden. Founded in 1640, the University of Helsinki stands as Finland's largest and oldest academic institution. In opening speeches, we usually like to bring forward that we are the alma mater of 9 presidents, multiple Nobel laureates, and thousands of influential figures in the worlds of politics, culture, and business. Today, however, I would like to highlight the thousands of university community members that do not have their names in history books or their faces painted in pictures hung on university walls. Those university members that have discussed, debated, sparked new thinking and acted, perhaps in the shadows. One does not need to end up in history books in order to create history. One does not need to be a president, rector, minister, or a Nobel laureate in order to make difference. At the University of Helsinki, we have always taken pride that we want to create solutions not for the few, but for the many. For solutions to be for many, they also need to be created by many and not by the few. In order for us to tackle current global challenges, we need the voices of the many more than ever. We need to cross bridges and break silos, not only within academia, but forging alliances and creating transdisciplinary collaboration. As President Niemelä put it, systemic challenges require systemic solutions. And systemic solutions are not created alone, but together. Later this week, you will have the opportunity to explore one of our campuses in the city center of Helsinki. You will have a chance to explore the university main building from 1823. I hope the newly renovated building gives you a glimpse at our long history. Moreover, I hope that your discussions, your work and encounters during this week give you solutions and hope for the future, a future that is created together. I wish you all a great conference week and stay in Finland.
Thank you so much, Professors Niemelä and Lindblom, and please accept my apologies, Professor Lindblom, for reassigning you to Aalto University instead of the University of Helsinki. Now it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Minister Kai Mykkänen As Finland's Environment and Climate Change Minister, he's ideally positioned to offer his remarks on the main theme of this week's Congress, which is Be the Progress Towards Sustainability. Welcome, Minister Mykkänen.
President Halonen, ladies and gentlemen, and especially dear guests, you are very warmly welcomed also on behalf of the Finnish government here to Espoo, or the capital region, and to Aalto-yliopisto and Helsinki yliopisto to join this magnificent Congress. I don't know whether I can actually use the slides from some setting, but anyway. So, technical innovations, yes. So, okay. Okay, there is no slide setter. All right, hey, I would like maybe in a short nutshell to just say something also about the substance, that if you look on our government's core strategy, how to achieve climate neutrality and our path on green transition, I usually put it in these three main angles. First, Finland has a privilege to be able to double clean electricity production easier and faster than most countries in Europe. We've already been actually the country who has installed largest amount of onshore wind during past 2 years, and also we've been increasing nuclear production continuously during past 20 years. Fortunately enough, we have already 95% of our electricity system now fossil-free. In a nutshell, you could say that during past 20 years we've been able to replace fossils in electricity, and during next few years we will be able to replace fossils from heating system, which is very significant in Finland as a cold country. You are here now. You are here actually during this June, which is the first June for 50 years, that there is no coal power in Espoo. The capital region's third largest coal power plant, Suomenoja, was closed permanently 2 months ago. Last year, the largest coal power and heat plant in capital region in Hanasaari, in the eastern side of core Helsinki center, was closed. And next year, Salmisaari, which is the third large coal power plant here in the western corner of Helsinki city center, will be closed. So this is the green transition that we are seeing, witnessing, and doing here. Then the third step, I would say, if you look to the large amounts of CO2 emissions, will be to get rid of fossils in heavy industry. And that's thing what I'm mostly doing, trying to enable steel industry, chemical industry to find the courage to invest out on fossils. Inspiringly enough, for instance, Neste Oil, which is the largest oil refinery company in Baltic Sea region, has decided about a strategy last winter that they would be actually abandoning oil in 10 years as an oil company. That in Kilpilahti Porvoo refinery there will be only renewable fuels and synthetic fuels made from clean electricity and hydrogen. So this is about what kind of path we have here. Actually, last year, most of the industrial sectors published their so-called low-carbon roadmaps. The first generation of low-carbon roadmaps were done already 4 years ago, and now we've facilitated updating of these roadmaps, and also first round for certain sectors which were not participating 4 years ago. Just as an example about how fast this development has been, especially in electricity and heat, you can see this fresh slide from energy sector's roadmap, and actually quite even amazing that now their strategy is to actually become carbon negative already within some 10 to 15 years. So that in Finland, using electricity or heat would be actually carbon negative. Energy sector would be taking more CO2 from the atmosphere and out of the biocirculating than would be emitting to the climate. And this is of course very much the backing side for all other sectors as well, if you are talking about services or heavy industries or transportation, logistics or whatever. On a broader general picture, this maybe is not so easy to look at, but the basic situation is that we've been able to cut about 40% of the fossil gross emissions that we have in Finland since 2005, about 40%. And the aim in the national climate law is that we will be minus 60% by 2030, and we are quite well positioned to achieve that position. Also, if you look to the EU targets that we have for effort sharing sector and so forth, we are quite well in those limits of margins what we should be in 2030. Our large challenge, though, and has to be admitted, is the land use sector's net sink, which, as you can actually see also from here, has been diminishing quite consistently already for past 15 years. Methodology has been changed towards giving more pessimistic results about how much our forest land is actually taking in net-wise from climate carbon, and also replacing wood imports from Russia, which used to be quite significant, especially 20 years ago. They have been consistently decreasing already during 2010s and were totally stopped 2 years ago because of the Russia's attack to Ukraine. And this is our challenge, that since our very ambitious goal is to achieve climate neutrality already in 11 years from now on, in 2035, is that our fossil emissions are quite well on path to that target level, which was assumed when climate law was adopted, but the sink, which should then absorb that residual emissions, is quite hard to actually to get to that level of 21 million tons, which was assumed those years, 4 or 5 years ago when law was implemented. So this is in a nutshell what we are doing in climate level. And if you for instance, during this week, if you please could figure out how to get the sink to 20 million, so then I will definitely be in phone if you call the results for me. And not only will be available in phone, but we also, as a government, try to support research and development by resources. In the meanwhile, as at least all Finns here know, that we are struggling to implement the hardest expenditure cuts of public finances, what we have witnessed in 35 years, since early 1990s. But in the meanwhile, we are actually investing quite significantly more to R&D. A few years ago, I was actually part of the parliamentary group which agreed about the R&D law, which we have adopted to our legislation, which actually legally binds certain path where we increase by about 200-300 million euros each year to R&D public sponsoring, meaning that actually in the end of this government period in 2027, the public financing of R&D will be about 1 billion euro larger than it was last year. So in this sense, we are investing more, and of course this requires getting to the 4% of GDP by 2030. It requires that also private sector does its part and invest actually 3 times that amount that the government is putting in. But so far we've been able to witness that kind of development in Finnish history, and hopefully are doing that also in the future. And of course there we count very much on the active work and good collaboration with the corporations and entrepreneurs from the universities. So here just some early glimpses about what kind of things we especially are doing here, and of course actually many of those technical solutions that count and enable our progress towards fossil-free society. They are actually invented by universities and technological agencies, Finnish colleagues from these circles about these things. And when we are talking about science, its role in decision making, there will also be a policy dialogue session later on. Feel free to join. In Finland, we traditionally have quite low hierarchies, low barriers for dialogue, I would say. We've enabled also like easier access for climate and sustainability science to government decision making by founding both climate panel and nature panel officially by government and resourcing them. For instance, now in Wednesday, I have a pleasure again to lead the parliamentary climate group, which has representatives from all parliament parties, and the chairperson of the climate panel, Juri Seppälä, will be joining as a permanent advisor to the parliamentary climate panel, for instance. Also, we have a close dialogue with the nature panel and its chairman, so this is one way how we also connect science to decision making of the society. Right, so definitely welcome to this Congress also on behalf of the government, and as I said, we have high hopes that you will solve all the remaining problems that we have in our green transition, but that in the meanwhile, of course, you have also challenge to solve all the problems in the world. So I wish you very fruitful discussions, new connections, hopefully emerging new research projects, which will be started now here and will be then giving results in a few years. And as the president of Helsinki University quite well put it, it's really not the ministers, not even sometimes the presidents who count, but actually it's the researchers and innovators who are the backbone of green transition in Finland, in Europe, and in the whole world. Thank you.
Well, you've heard the minister's call to action. Solve everything. No pressure. Thank you, Minister Mykkänen, for that overview of Finland's advances toward achieving higher levels of sustainability across many segments as it transitions toward a greener economy. I believe this serves as the perfect backdrop for the rest of the morning's and indeed the week's proceedings. And on that note, I think it's appropriate to invite the conveners of this year's SRI SSD event to welcome everyone to our series of discussions, which of course will contribute to achieving a knowledge and research-based sustainability transformation, as the minister indicated. Please join me now in welcoming Dr. Nicole Arbour, Executive Director of the Belmont Forum, and Dr. Vera Mitzner. She is SRI Director and Associate Director of the Future Earth US Global Hub. But just 1 second, they'll be immediately followed by Dr. Anna Stewart. She's the Executive Director of the Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research, which co-hosted SRI 2023 in Panama. And finally, we'll have a video address by the other SRI 2023 co-host, Dr. Omar Lopez Alfano. He's Director of the National Research System at the National Secretariat of Science, Technology and Innovation in the Republic of Panama. And after that, we'll dive into our plenary. Please, Dr. Arbour, Dr. Mitzner.
Good morning. Hyvää huomenta. God morgon. Minister Mykkänen, President Halonen, dear guests. I would like to start by thanking our hosts and co-organizers, Aalto University and Rector Ilkka Niemelä, and University of Helsinki and Rector Sari Lindblom. It is an honor to bring the Sustainability Research and Innovation Congress to Finland, the happiest country in the world, and also increasingly green, as we just learned. And to work with the country's two largest and most prestigious universities. It has been a great collaboration with the Sustainability Science Days. SRI is a very unique initiative. There aren't other events that are annual and global and dedicated to the so urgently needed knowledge-based transformation to sustainability. Events that are equally international, inclusive, and engaging. Over 1,200 participants from all over the world will be joining us for the SRI SSD Congress this week. And many more will come to our open day this Wednesday. We have already started the program with our satellite event in Durban, South Africa, that brought together almost 450 people from the African continent and beyond. I'm very confident that while we might not solve all the problems in Finland and the world, you will have a lot of opportunities for connecting, sharing, networking, inspiration, and joy. Thank you. Kiitos. Tack.
So I'm, oops. Ah! So once again, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Vera, for doing all of the hard part of the introduction, because that means it leaves me with the fun part of inspiring you. So I had the pleasure, Vera mentioned the satellite event that happened in Durban, South Africa, and I had the pleasure of being there to participate in that event. And one of the things that I can bring to you from that event, and from our previous events of the Sustainability Research and Innovation Congress, is that stories have power. And the stories that you are going to hear this week are going to be very powerful stories. And you're going to meet some amazing and fantastic people. And the group of people who are in the room today, and the 1,200 people that Vera mentioned earlier, are coming from around the world. And all over the world, we have some amazing stories to tell and some amazing stories to hear. And so I hope that you will take the time during the Congress to meet some of these amazing people, to participate and learn from these stories, and to help us create the community of practice in transdisciplinary research, in co-creation that we need in order to, step up to the minister's, I'm not sure, challenge to us, perhaps, to solve all of the world's problems. I hope that SRI will have a role to play in solving the world's problems, that we can look back on this, 25 years, 10 years, 5 years from now, and say, oh my goodness, I remember that story. It was told at this event, at this time when I was there. And we can point to that and we can say, this is where these conversations began with pride. And so with that, I'm going to thank you all, and I'm going to remind you, this is not your grandmother's conference. This is not a typical academic conference. I'd like to say this is one of the most fun conferences that I have been to. We want you to do things differently, we want to do things differently, and we want to think about how we can do all of those things together and in an international way. So welcome, and come play with us.
Welcome, everybody. So my job is to share the messages from SRI 2023. Last year, the Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research, the IAI, was proud to co-host SRI 2023 with the National Secretary for Science, Technology, and Innovation of Panama, the Belmont Forum, and Future Earth. We shared closing messages from a group of indigenous and local peoples of the Americas and emerging science policy leaders. They voiced the urgency for action to transform the harmful systems that perpetuate injustice and jeopardize current and future generations on this planet. They proclaimed the importance of centering indigenous and local perspectives and knowledge and creating purposeful, respectful, and safe spaces by and for indigenous and local peoples. They voiced the need for collective action to build trust and equity amongst societies while working towards solutions. These messages are more critical than ever. Earlier this month, the World Meteorological Organization launched the report on the state of the climate in Latin America and the Caribbean for 2023, confirming that 2023 was the hottest year on record and that sea levels in the Atlantic continue to rise at a higher rate than the global average, threatening coastal areas and small island developing states in the Caribbean. Amidst the recent El Niño event and warming temperatures, we have faced a dengue fever emergency in the Americas, breaking records with over 5 million cases to date in 2024, including disease outbreaks spreading into temperate countries, such as Uruguay, where I live, for the first time. Although global environmental change affects us all, undoubtedly, the impact is inequitable, with the poor, children, elderly, indigenous and local communities, and women facing greater impacts around the world. SRI is a space for hope, a catalyst for action, and fertile ground for building the partnerships needed to develop concrete solutions. From 2023, our message is that the time to act is now. We cannot wait. And as we co-create solutions, we need to center the needs, knowledge, and solutions coming from those on the front lines, those most impacted today and in the future. With that, I will close by expressing my sincere thanks to our hosts this year, Aalto University and the University of Helsinki, for hosting 2024, SRI 2024. And I wish everyone a week filled with inspiration, new friendships and knowledge, and a renewed commitment to building together a healthier and more equitable future for all. Thank you.
Esteemed colleagues and friends.
Address
Distinguished guests.
from Dr.
Esteemed colleagues and friends.
Omar Lopez.
It is my great honor to speak on behalf of the National Secretariat of Science, Technology, and Innovation of the Republic of Panama, SENACID, at this prestigious gathering. In June 2023, SENACID, in collaboration with the Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research, the Belmont Forum, and Future Earth proudly hosted the Research and Innovation Congress for Sustainability, SRI, for the first time on the American continent. This milestone event brought together a diverse group of passionate students, academics, scientists, researchers, government experts, conservationists, innovators, and civil society members, including indigenous groups. One of the highlights of the Congress was the declaration presented by the indigenous peoples, locals community, and Afro-descendants. Their profound words resonates deeply. We are the ones who care for and protect the territories because we are part of Mother Earth. We are defenders of the knowledge to find solutions to major problems such as climate change and the loss of biodiversity, among others. Their declaration underscores a vital truth: our global challenges, from demographic shift and development pressures to environmental degradation and economic uncertainties, are interconnected. The health of our planet and the well-being of its inhabitants depend on our collective actions and shared responsibility. Looking ahead, SRI 2024 promised to be an even more inclusive and dynamic forum, bringing together participants from over 100 countries, both online and in person. This Congress will be a platform to debate ideas, to share knowledge, and seek fair and inclusive solutions through the power of science, technology, and innovation. To our brothers and sisters in Finland and around the globe, I wish you all a successful and inspiring SRI 2024 Congress. Your collaborative efforts light the path to a sustainable and equitable future for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our distinguished speakers for your warm welcome and for backgrounding SRI SSD 2024. And we are trying to stay on schedule, so while I introduce the next segment, we're going to have a bit of movement going on stage here, where we break down the equipment that was required for Ida Elina's wonderful opening act. But please bear with me. We'll now, as I said, move to the next segment of this morning's program, which is our plenary discussion. And I'll just explain a bit about how we envisioned conducting this panel. It'll be divided into two segments that will be anchored by your contributions, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go along. What you should see behind me at some point is a slideshow of images depicting what you, our audience, consider to be representative of a good life within planetary boundaries. Now, you will recall that earlier I did raise this question: what does a good life for all of us mean in the context of avoiding overtaxing our planetary resources? And really, is there a universal idea of what a good life should look like? That's our slideshow. Anyway, whatever our criteria for living a good life, how can we square that with our growing imperative to mitigate the effects of climate change, which we know will affect the most vulnerable populations? That will be the subject of our panel, and that's what our special guests will address. But to first ground the first part of the discussion and to ensure that you also participate in the conversation, this is the part that I'm going to explain to you, I'd like to ask all of you to answer the following question in a word or two. What does a good life within planetary boundaries look like? To submit your answer, you can either scan the QR code that will come up behind me eventually, or go into the Congress app and select the session, this session, where you will see a Q&A selection. Is everyone doing that? I can't tell. Let me just, yes? So to reiterate, answer the question in a word or two: what does a good life within planetary boundaries look like? Thank you. That was a much speedier breakdown than I'd been promised. All right, and while you are thinking about it and answering the questions, I will just introduce our panel. And I'll start with former President of Finland, Tarja Halonen. And just to give you a bit of background about President Halonen, if you don't know, she's very famous here in Finland. She served as head of state for 2 terms from 2000 to 2012, and she's the only woman to have held the position to date. She's been a member and chair of the board of directors at the University of Helsinki, and she currently holds many honorary positions and degrees from prestigious institutions and organizations worldwide. Welcome, President Halonen. Also joining our panel is Ri-Yong Kim. She's the head of sustainability transitions at the European Environment Agency. Ri-Yong has an interdisciplinary background in environmental science and natural resource economics. Her work currently focuses on sustainability challenges and responses, including the many interdependencies between social, economic, and environmental objectives. Welcome, Ri-Yong. And there is the QR code that you can scan if you haven't already got into the Congress app. And finally, joining us online from the UK is Kate Rawers. She's a senior associate at Oxford University. Kate teaches the master's program in environmental change and management at Oxford University's Environmental Change Institute. She's the creator of the Donut of Social and Planetary Boundaries and co-founder of the Donut Economics Action Lab. Welcome, Kate. I believe that Kate is supposed to pop up on this screen. Let's see if we have her here. But while we wait for Kate to join us, we can see that we have a word cloud that's developing behind this hair. Oh, we can see it on this screen as well, which is reflecting the responses that our participants here and online have contributed to this conversation. Nature connection, respectful, sufficient, inclusive. Inclusion comes up a lot. Equity, equity for all. Happiness. I guess that came from someone in Finland, the happiest country in the world, right? Yes, it goes a long way, I agree.
I said only that the secret of the Finnish happiness is our sense of humor.
I would like our technical guys to tell me what's happening with Kate. Is she joining us? 2 minutes. All right, well, while we wait for Kate to join us, let's take a look at the ideas, and we'll start in on our discussion on what makes for a good life within planetary boundaries. And I'll start with you, Riyong. These thoughts that we're seeing here, how do they line up with current research? Welcome, Kate. Nice to see you. Riyong, what does the research have to say with what people are saying here in our audience?
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here, and it's actually quite a pleasure to kick off this discussion over a week. I could see now the word cloud's disappeared, but I jotted down a few of the words, and some of the common words that seem to be put in bold are things like sufficient, equity for all, nature, clean. Again, this idea of living well within planetary boundaries is, of course, really espousing a lot of those particular characteristics. So, I mean, in terms of what research says is living well, I don't think we've necessarily defined that. I think it means different things for different people, and I think having opportunities such as this, where we're gathering such a large, diverse range of people to discuss what living well and what a good life actually is, actually helps us develop a bit of a common understanding as to what would be living well within planetary boundaries. In the EU, we use this as a long-term goal to achieve a living well within the planets of the limits of the planet. But I think one of the difficulties with the science and policy is that the fact that we do have very different ways of actually understanding that. So I think it's very inspiring to see exactly how people here are actually looking at what living well means.
Absolutely. Life. And I think, President Halonen, I'd like to turn to you. I think one of the terms that we saw pop up was inclusion, inclusivity, including other people. And based on your experience, what do you think we can do to ensure that this good life, that we are still to agree what it is exactly, is inclusive?
When I saw your question, that what is a good life, so I criticized it immediately. I said that the good life has not a good taste in Finland, because we think that good life has been, how could I say, misused in many ways. And that's why we more use a decent life or something, not bad life in that way, because of course the whole collection of the Sustainable Development Goals tells that part of those items what we have there are something what we, for instance, in Nordic countries with the welfare society, we consider they are granted, as granted. Of course, these are, why to take these? And then in many parts of the world, people think that they will be happy to get the water or the sanitation, health, food, and so on. I mean that it's very different in different places. But at the same time, people who are living in so-called good life in the cities, they might miss the contact with the nature, and they see also the different kind of the social difficulties. I would say that the ecological side and economics is quite well understood in the most of the countries of the UN family. But then what's coming for the social justice is much, much more difficult. And that's why this trio, put all these three main subjects together is difficult. But another time, what you said already, that it's just taking time, all this. So I'm perhaps here because I'm the oldest one, and please don't exaggerate the meaning of the sports. I made it, like my grandchildren said. But anyway, I mean that when we started it with Millennium Goals, and then we continued with the more fair globalization, then we continued with the Rio process, and then we have this agenda, and now we have had already these meetings, and thank you not yet asking that I'm still in climate change negotiations and also the desertification negotiation, and I'm already been over 50 years in this business. Please be at the same time patient and also demand everything sooner, because we have no time to waste. And I think this is the whole system.
Absolutely, and that's the challenge, isn't it, Kate, that when we think and we talk about a good life, we need to be patient in that we need to come to some kind of common understanding globally about what that means. As President Halonen pointed out, basic services, things that contribute to a decent life, are things that we can take for granted in some parts of the world, but not necessarily so in other parts of the world. And I don't know where Kate has gone to, but perhaps I can... Oh, Kate, you're back. Wonderful. Good to see you. And Kate, the question is really, do we know whether or not we can arrive at some kind of broad consensus that will allow us to take urgent action?
Well, it's great to join you all. I was struck by the words on the screen that and I really like this distinction between a good life, which we often have a rising and a rising and a rising demand for what good is it enough? And President Halonen talking of a decent life, some people wrote sufficiency on the screen. And I think it's a really important part, particularly in the Western mindset, to realize, do I already have enough of this? And this is sufficient for my well-being. I was also struck that the words that were written on the screen and the images that we saw, people skiing through the woods, wandering in nature, they sit on top of, as you've said, an assumption that, well, of course we have food and we have water and we have heating and we have a stable climate. These are the preconditions to be able to enjoy, to be in nature, to be at ease, to have peace. But I don't think we can take them for granted. I think we know that they are under threat in all parts of the world. The sufficiency and the stability of food supply, of water supply, of a stable climate. So they come back and they become real again for us. But the last thing I just want to say on this is I find in the phrase a good life or a decent life for all within planetary boundaries, to me this word within, which is just a little in-between word in the English language, within, it's a radical word. And when you hear the European Commission, when you hear governments, individual nations using this phrase, a good life for all within planetary boundaries, to me this little within reminds us that we're talking in a different paradigm now. We're not talking in the very 20th century mindset of endless expansion. We want more, we want growth, we want more, increase. It's saying, well, we want to thrive, but within planetary boundaries, there is something else. There is the bigger system, which is Mother Earth, which is the living world, and we must respect her systems, and we can't change them and we put pressure on them at our own peril. And so for me, that change in mindset that we're now hearing reflected in political language is something to celebrate. And this helps us know that we're starting to think differently. We are listening to the planet in a way that we did not in the latter half of the 20th century and still the beginning of this century. So this mindset is, for me, part of what makes us have this patience with urgency, that we are changing deeply the way we think, and now we must turn that new realization into policy.
Thank you, Kate. Now, if we talk about that urgency a little bit, Riyong, are we urgent enough? We heard Professor Lindblom earlier talk about extreme weather in certain parts of the continent and indeed certain parts of the globe. What's happening? Are we doing enough? And we're talking about also coming very close to some of our planetary boundaries. What is the research telling us in terms of how close we are and whether we can draw back so that we operate within those boundaries?
So I think most of you might have seen an earlier publication about the planetary boundaries, which has actually shown that 6 of the 9 boundaries are already exceeded. Correct. We are way beyond the safe operating space. And I mean, this was meant to be a kind of inspiring conversation, and I don't want to come with a doomsday picture, but we are in trouble. I mean, the extreme summer that we experienced in 2022, according to a report that we published on the European Union's view on climate, we found that this was the hottest summer. It led to 60 to 70,000 premature deaths in Europe. We've seen floods, huge precipitation events over the past 3 years. In Slovenia in 2023, it cost them 16% of the national GDP. So we're dealing with situations where we've got these issues of trespassing, the overpassing the climate change boundaries, the biodiversity boundaries. People might know here the overshoot, the idea of the World Overshoot Day. It's becoming earlier and earlier every year. And also, where I think one of the things that are really missing from the conversation when we talk about this urgency is nature. We are approaching the 6th mass extinction, and we are seeing 75% of terrestrial areas and 66% of marine areas that are actually, under serious alteration. And so we are in a bit of trouble, and I think this is where from the institutional perspective, we talk about accelerating, making sure we're reducing our emissions, but this whole idea of restoring nature, of ensuring that nature's integrity is upheld, it's largely missing. But if you look at the pictures that were, the slideshow that we saw, a lot of it was pictures of nature, walking out. So we all know this is what a good life means for us. Yet from the institutional perspective, it's a discourse that's largely missing, and I think this is a huge issue. And just to pick up a little bit on what Kate was saying, this little word within, on some level, it's a word that means so much, because we've come to realize that we are living within an earth. We were living within this place that we can't go beyond this. Yet when we look at some of the actions and initiatives,
it doesn't seem that way, does it?
It's not kind of mirrored in that. So this is where I think the sense of urgency for me is that we've got to do a lot of actions along many different dimensions.
No. I'd like to give President Halonen, I saw that you had a thought that you wanted to contribute there. I'll give you a chance to come back to it.
If I can add something, because of course, coming from Finland, so I'm a European, yes, okay, and I'm European-centric in many ways. So we thought when we made this agenda 2030, so of course we put also peace there and democracy, but we, in a way, we thought that it's for those who are not used to be in Europe without real wars and so on. And now you know today what's going on. We have the war in Ukraine because of the Russia. And so 2 years ago, when I met already in March, when all that happened in February, I met the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. I know him from the past quite well. So I tried to explain that it's kind of the shock this everything has been for us, for Europeans. And then he looked at me and then said, Tarja, you might remember that the war has been in Syria already 7 years. You might remember the Yemen. You might remember this and that. Yeah, Yeah, but you understand, this is in a way our European war now. And this is something what I think describes very well, that there are many such kind of the places in this planet what people have hardly enjoyed the peace, or the society without such kind of the armed conflict, how do you like to name them. And so I think that what's my advice is that as soon as you get such kind of the conflict, and even we say that we have to learn to solve the different kind of the difficulties, the problems, challenges at the same time, when you got the war just in the next door. So this is what you think every day. That's what the mothers and fathers think, that how their children can survive. This is the same concerning also these other challenges. And I think that this is something everybody should learn, that even the Mother Earth cannot wait until we have solved our own human conflicts. So
Absolutely.
that we have to learn somehow helping each other to do all these at the same time.
Absolutely.
And this is what I'm, sorry that I'm so pathetic, but this is really, I mean, the big issue.
Not pathetic at all, but actually peace was one of the words that stood out for me on the word cloud. And I think when we think about our planetary boundaries, we don't often think about the lack of conflict or avoiding conflict or resolving conflict as an important factor in helping us move forward and to live within our planetary boundaries. Because, I mean, let's face it, war is a huge polluter. I mean, the industry.
And takes all the money and all your interest.
Exactly.
And innovations are just in arms. And, sorry.
Yes, but thank you for bringing us back to that reality, President Halonen. I'd like to give you, Kate, a final word because on this segment, because Riyong felt that we were getting a bit really rapidly into the doom and gloom phase of our conversation, and you were quite hopeful when you talked about that one little word, within, because you felt that it represented a dawning realization that there is no planet B, there is no other planet. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So what other ideas give you hope within this concept and this conversation about living within our planetary boundaries before we move on to the next segment?
Oh, great question. So I think if we look at the level of the mindset that we've been living under, the 20th century was very, very dominated by growth. And actually in my nation's politics, and we're about to have an election within the next 4 weeks, and the conversation still is here, again, dominated by growth. But it feels very outdated to me. And I think in many other countries, and learning from indigenous cultures, as we've heard earlier from a speaker this morning, listening much more to a wisdom that's been around for a long time, there is a conversation about regeneration. And I think the word regenerative, I mean, I recall when I first heard the word regenerative, it was in 2013, 2014, in an economic conversation. So in the last decade, regeneration and regenerative design and regenerative economies has become a big part of the conversation in many Western countries. It's the rising paradigm. What does it mean to restore this world so that living systems can keep producing conditions conducive to life? It's not yet in the mainstream economic conversation, but I'm sure many people who are in this room now are bringing that mindset. We use different words for it, right? People frame it differently, but bringing that mindset of restoring life in the living world. Also, I talk about moving from degenerative to regenerative economic systems, but also from divisive ones that capture value and opportunity in the hands of a few to distributive ones. We need to be distributive by design, because a living system, if we look to nature, and she's been flourishing for 3.8 billion years, nature doesn't hoard resources in the trunk of a tree. She'll grow her tree only until the resources can reach the tips of the leaves, and then the tree stops growing, because the tree knows that actually circulating resources around the whole tree is part of being alive. So we need to be distributive by design and regenerative by design. And I see a whole generation of scholars, of activists, of entrepreneurs, of people going into policy who are starting to bring this mindset. So that gives me hope. When I hear that language and that framing and that little word within, I know this new mindset is in the room, and it's got to find its way against the old mindset of growth, 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 which is very powerful and very entrenched, but it's in the room, and I'll bet it's in the room today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Inspiring and very positive indeed. And on that note, talking about regeneration, talking about harmony with nature, I'd like to share with you some comments from Fernando Juanacuni, who actually was supposed to join us on the panel, but unfortunately was delayed and could not make it to Helsinki this morning. But he was so committed to sharing his message that he sent them on, and I will read them for you. I will try to read them, I think, not in his voice, but with the spirit that he brings to his message. So this brief address is titled Living Well, or Good Living. The human being, a product of modernity, has entered an extreme process of individualization, therefore into a process of disconnection from nature. Human beings are now disconnected from each other, from other forms of existence, and even from themselves. The modern human being has entered a process of denaturalization because he has not only left behind the community ways of life, the modern human has reached the point of not even being able to consolidate a family, and we end our lives in absolute loneliness. The greatest proof of this disconnection is that today, the modern world and its modes of production are affecting our Mother Earth. These modes of production, led by capitalism, are oriented by the generation of wealth at the cost of life. From the proposal of Vivir Bien, or Living Well, we propose the reconstitution of a very old paradigm, common to many ancestral cultures, the paradigm of community. Vivir Bien, or Living Well, implies balance and harmony. Balance with all forms of existence and harmony with the cycles of Mother Earth and the cosmos. Beyond a process of humanization, humankind requires a process of naturalization, in which we reconnect with Mother Earth, and we regain our sensitivity to everything that surrounds us. Human beings need to relearn that we're only a small part of life. No matter how big or small, everything lives, and everything is important. The starting point is our identity. We need to recover awareness of who we are and accept and love ourselves as we are, with everything that life has given us. This constitutes a first balance with ourselves, then the balance with other human beings and with other forms of existence. Because we're all children of Mother Earth, and each form of life contributes to the balance of the whole. Our identity is the first strength of the human being. The second strength is respect for our ancestors, our parents, grandparents, teachers, and all those who've bequeathed us a path of life based on their own experiences. Likewise, harmony is not achieved individually. Harmony is achieved when we relate to the cycles of Mother Earth, Father Cosmos, life, and history. We need to respect the sowing, harvest, and rest cycles of Mother Earth, the rainy season and the dry season, the cycles of the moon and the sun, because those cycles affect our lives. Being in harmony with the cycles of life is knowing when the physical body is consolidating, as well as our mental and emotional structures, when we should consolidate our life as a couple, and so on. Finally, it is key to be aware of the cycles of rise and fall of history, to be in harmony with them as a society. Those are Fernando's words. On that note, let's move to the second part of our panel, which is where we will consider what challenges face us as we live a good life within planetary boundaries. So once more, I will ask you to contribute your thoughts, your ideas. You can scan the QR code or go into the Congress app, look for this session, and select the Q&A to submit your answers. While you submit your responses, I will remind you that hopefully we'll have about 10 minutes at the end of the second round of discussions so that you, the audience, can pose questions and comments directly to our panelists before we wrap up the segment. It would be wonderful, and I don't know if it's at all possible, if we could keep the word cloud up while we have the second round of the conversation. Let's see if that's going to work. I've got to. I'll just read some of them out loud. Filthy rich and abject poor. Anxiety, profit, overconsumption, short-sightedness, political agendas, greed, capitalism, individualism, inequality, lack of empathy, racism, policy not ambitious enough, injustice, woke movement, transition process. So lots of thoughts and ideas. So Kate, I wonder if you're seeing the word cloud, and if you can, how closely would you say those ideas align with what we currently know about the hurdles that we are confronting and will have to confront as we strive to live within our planetary boundaries?
Well, there's a lot coming up on the screen. Big
thoughts.
Stuff, so much stuff, as somebody wrote. War, capitalism, profit, racism. So the big struggles, which shows that we know. We're walking all around. We're walking around every day knowing these challenges that we face. For me, the ones that keep coming back again and again is around there's capitalism, profit. So it's the drive of finance to generate a return for finance in order to generate a return for finance, which leads to the first one you read out, which was, I think, something like filthy rich and extreme poverty. So it leads to extremes of inequality. And I remind myself every day that finance is an entirely human invention. Money is a construct, it's a creation. And so we can reinvent it, because at the moment its design of endless accumulation is designed against the very cycles of life of which Fernando wrote so poetically. It doesn't have a rest phase. It doesn't respect the sun and the moon and the cycles of the harvest. It seeks to increase itself every quarter. So I see continually a challenge of life and earth and her cycles and her realities versus human-created desires of the financial invention that we've made. And for me, that is underpins so much of the challenge that we have there. But one other I'll speak to, which is around conflict, it's around collective action. How do we come together and see ourselves bigger than the small group of us versus you? Right? Humans form very, very rapidly into small groups of my group versus your group, whether it's my team or my country or my community or my family or my nation. We too easily go there. It triggers very deep, familiar, we'll collaborate in order to compete with you. We need to find another way of rising above that as humanity, collaborating together on this planet, because there's no chance of us, I think, surviving and thriving if we keep allowing ourselves to be quickly drawn into this competitive, aggressive, mutually destructive mindset, because a stable climate and sufficiency of flowing water resources, of sufficiency of earth cycles, depends on mutual stewardship of them. Absolutely. So for me, we need to think very deeply within ourselves about and find new ways of internationally collaborating, as well as redesign finance. Those are small things to be talking about at this time in the morning, hey?
Well, the minister did say solve all the problems. That's what we're working on here. I think that your comments, Kate, bring me back to President Holonen's previous thought that she articulated when she brought up the specter of war and conflict. And we really have to learn to get along. That's the fundamental message. But President Holonen, I'd like to bring you in here and ask you, as a former head of state, a former minister, a politician, what are the special stumbling blocks that you think governments and policy makers have to negotiate to ensure that we can live within our planetary boundaries? I mean, we bring ourselves as individuals to this conversation, but I think that at the level of the state, there may be a different calculus altogether in terms of getting around certain kinds of problems. What might those issues be?
I think that one of the issues is that we all demand that we should have a democratic system with elections and so on. We know that elections might in every 4th year, or the 5th and so on. And then also, thanks, I always put something also concerning the media. So media hopes also that you have to have a clear opinions and speak directly and so on. Which has now with the new social media and so it has turned to be also that the more you can be wicked, you can more be rough in your speeches, the better you are, or more honest you are, which is very bad. And that can cause the polarization, because what we anyway need is the cooperation. And cooperation means sometimes, and very often, also the compromises. So we should find a way how in the democratic system we could keep the power of the individuals to decide the democratic system, but also to take it over the elections. And so when we have this global agreement, or the, good to remember, agenda is not an agreement, but we are committed to the same agenda. So that it will keep over the elections, whatever it is, the president or the parliament or government and so on. And that might help it. But then also we who are the voters, we have to understand this. We have to demand that the discussion between the governments and the opposition and so can be more, could I say, peaceful or understanding. But it's easy to say when you are coming from the Nordic countries. I know that sometimes the whole discussion is impossible. But then I'm optimistic. I'm really optimistic, because I think that we have advanced a lot in the last 25 years. And so I also trust in you at the universities, but I don't think that it can be the miracle of the science. It has to be combined with the society outside. And my last thing is that don't always speak about the next generation. It takes too much time. Just believe. I see also some gray hairs and white hairs. And so I have 5 grandchildren. And I think that the cooperation between the generations can be a very good one. Because we all can also, how could I say, modify our thinking. And please, concerning the markets or the capitalism, my background is a social democrat, so I'm already pink. But I have noticed that sometimes the markets can be also better and faster than the politicians. Because, of course, we are all consumers, but it's not the meaning of our life. And that's why don't shoot early birds like on German car fabrics. But I mean that it's anyway, we can try to combine these different kind of the elements of the modern society. Sorry, I always speak too lengthy. But you made this question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, it's all my fault. That's quite right. But I hear you, and what I hear you saying is that we have to sort of engage in collective action as an electorate to ensure that our governments have some kind of
Yeah.
continuity of policy,
Yeah, I
and
think
not just
that's important.
ideas are reversed when governments change.
And then my last point is, of course, that we have a lot of untapped human creativity, so that I don't speak women anymore because, yeah, there are some men also still here. So I mean that 50% plus 50% makes more than 100% in that way in social life. And please, now we have also to believe that the younger generation of the male ones will be very, very productive, and the older ones also change their minds. So I do think just trust in yourself, but sometimes change your opinions.
And let's get that intergenerational learning going. I think we have to actually wrap up this segment, but I don't want to leave Riyang out of the conversation. Your specialty focus is on the delicate interdependence among social, economic, and environmental imperatives, and that's kind of the delicate dance that policymakers are conducting all the time. What has been the global track record in terms of balancing? And I know we don't want to talk doom and gloom, but we can also look forward. What's the track record been in terms of balancing these kinds of considerations? And is there hope that we can do better?
Yeah, I mean, track record, we all talk about silos, we talk about how it's so difficult to understand different disciplines, but we see even with congresses such as these, we're bringing together different disciplines. We're getting social scientists with ecologists in the room, with the economists, to talk together about how do we solve this problem, because all of them do need to kind of, put their minds together to think about how do we move this forward. I think we're actually in the middle of a report that will be launched called the Sustainability Transitions Outlook, where we talk about maybe broadening the narrative from not just balancing economic development with planetary boundaries, because this idea of living well within planetary boundaries, it often becomes this dichotomy between the two. But coming back to a very early point from President Halonen, introducing a third dimension of social justice and dignity, because this is, it's true, we have enough resources to support the population. It's the growing affluent middle class that is actually pushing us over some of those boundaries. So how do we start looking at distribution by design, as Kate was saying, regeneration? And I think it comes back down to this, I think we are really on the cusp of a new paradigm because we are starting to see questions to the economic model. And in Brussels, we're having discussions about the new economic model. What would it look like if we had a well-being economy? And that's the first time in all of my career, actually starting as an interdisciplinary student, hearing this for the first time in the 90s, and then actually seeing it at the highest level in Brussels, where we're talking about, do we need a new economic model? So this is, it's starting now, and I think the more that we can kind of discuss between disciplines, we can actually share a bit of the same language. And just on a last point on the language is that, we talk about urgency, we talk about acceleration, we talk about faster, we've got to do something. And one of the key points for me is, can we change that language? Because we're not in a race against the financial system. We're not in a race against economic development. Climate, nature, that takes time. It takes regeneration. Regeneration takes time. Restoration takes time. So on the one hand, we've got this very long-term trajectory of actually healing our Earth and the rest cycles of the planet, as Fernando was talking about. And the lack of rest cycles in the financial system, as Kate was talking about. And so how do we ensure that the long-term and the short-term goals are not misaligned, that they're recalibrated towards the same purpose? And I think that's the key purpose of our jobs today as older generations or younger generations, is making sure the things that we do now are in line with the long-term goals that we've got for the future. And I think if we can keep that in mind, then we're on the same path, as you were saying, towards the same agenda.
All right, thank you for those comments, Riyang. Now, I do want to get to one subject before we go to the audience question, and that's the question of money. Kate made the point that it's a fabrication, it's a human fabrication, yes, but it still talks. And when we talk about climate mitigation or adaptation or preparedness, it's all about money. And if we talk about the green transition, we're looking at big investments in transforming the way we live and work and consume, indeed. So what's your view on the money question when it comes to this big challenge of living within our planetary boundaries? Kate, I'd like to start with you. Is that an issue where we are likely to stumble, or do you think that it's an excuse more than anything else?
So yes, money talks. I mean, and when I try to think about money, because it is a construct, what we're really talking about is the ability to command resources, right? If we have the money, it means we have the ability to command energy, to command human labor by employing people, to command material resources. So in a way, it becomes a question of who has the power to determine what human work, energy, and materials will be used to do in the world. And so when it comes to tackling the climate crisis, will nations' labor and energy be put into, for example, the renewable energy revolution, recognizing that there are a lot of social issues in the countries of Chile and others where the lithium is mined, right? So let's not always talk about renewable as clean. There are also social issues around the rise of new alternative sources. Will there be money for that revolution? But particularly, I think, is there money, i.e., are there resources being given to places that are already suffering the unavoidable impacts of climate change, the loss and damage that's already occurring because of climate change? And we know that many of those places are amongst the most vulnerable in the world. Actually, I want to connect this with the fact that we still have, at the same time, as a conversation about climate financing, whether it's for mitigating climate change or adapting to the impacts and loss and damage. We've also still got a global financial system where we have over 60 countries in the world are still paying more in debt repayments on health and education than they're able to spend. So we've got a financial system that is governments are starting to loan money to some of the most vulnerable countries in the world to adapt to climate change. So we are really mixing up financial transfers that are owned because of the impacts of climate change that are borne by the most vulnerable due to the excessive emissions of high-income countries like mine, like the Nordic countries, like all of high-income countries. We have an obligation to transfer funds because of the damage we know our actions have done. And that is being conflated with, well, we're going to loan you this money and you need to repay it with interest, which is, to me, a shocking, an appalling conflation and undermining of the moral obligation, actually, to give climate reparations for the damage that's been done. So again, when things get translated into money, we very quickly end up finding ourselves following the logic of the markets, which is, I'm giving you a loan, it's got to come back with repayment of debt, of interest. So we need to disentangle these things. And that's why I think it's helpful also just to think, is the money being put into adaptation? It's really, are we rechanneling the world's resources of human labor, energy, and material use, and our information towards tackling the challenges we've created? Let's make sure that when the world of financing climate and finance meet, that we don't get dominated by the logics of the markets, which I think happens time and time again in the world of finance for nature as well. When we're bringing money in to finance nature, suddenly you can find that nature needs to be giving a return. Nature is life. She is the ultimate and fundamental return. She doesn't owe us a financial return. But when we bring monetary valuation in as the frame, the market logic very quickly takes over. So that's what worries me. We start talking in the language of money and markets, and suddenly we have marketized and commodified nature. We have turned responding into climate change into a market opportunity and obligation.
Powerful words. Thank you, Kate. Ryong, you were just talked about the fact that you were pleased that there are conversations going around in Brussels about a new economic paradigm. That's a radical kind of economic paradigm that Kate is suggesting. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, just back on this money question, you know, indeed, from my point of view, money is a means to an end. You know, we are living in an economy where money is the available currency that allows us to exchange goods and services. And unfortunately for us to do things about or respond to some of the crises that we have, we need those resources in order to do that. So I don't think we'll necessarily leave that or do without it, because again, it's a short-term means to an end, hopefully a long-term goal that is actually living well within planetary boundaries. I think when we're talking about discussions about new economic models, it is really about starting to understand what are some of the limits of our planet and what are some of the limits to our society as well. And Kate, of course, with the donut economics, is really capturing this idea that we can't do more than the people that we've got, and if we are not taking care of the society and the dignity amongst the social populations and exhausting that particular resource, then we can't live in that safe operating space between our society and the planetary boundaries. So from my point of view, I think, yes, money is a necessary evil potentially, but it is a means to hopefully a long-term goal.
President Halonen, I see you've been ruminating on this part of the conversation.
No, I think that, in the matter of fact, the money is not the problem. We have a lot of financial resources in this planet, but the question is that what we are doing with that and who decides about that. When I was co-chairing the social dimension of globalization, or the fair globalization already about 20 years ago. So we have the good economists who said also the same, that especially the international financial markets, when it's uncontrolled, is one of the main problems. So we haven't solved that problem yet. I don't believe in global revolution. I do not believe it. I think that somehow we have to see that money is one resource, nature is also a resource, and has nature a price? If we always think that it has to be the economical value, so how can we change the system in such a way that we understand that the human beings have also the value and the nature has a value, and some of these are such kind of things what are not without limits, that we have to also think in that way. And in that way, I do hope so that the international financial system could somehow, at least step by step, to do the reforms. We don't decide them at the General Assembly of the United Nations, but all the members of the UN can do this kind of the solutions. And so I hope that how could I say, the good examples, encouraging examples also help. So the Nordic countries are not the risk for this world. And we had a very good experiences on this situation. And it has tried to combine both market economy, I don't say even the capitalism in this country, but let's say the market economy. But you have to combine it. The political forces, everyone, we are those who can make the goals. We can decide that those who make the decisions, that they have the targets, they have the limits, and they understand the new way, the resources we have in this planet. Am I positive? We have had just the EU parliamentary elections yesterday in Finland and in most of the member countries. It's very interesting to see. At the same time, we have the polarization, we have the growing understanding of what is the sustainable development. And at the same time, we have also the increasing group of the people who don't reflect it in voting. So under 50% of the Europeans had voted. So I mean that something that what you have had already the years and years, it doesn't mean that if you have it and your neighbor has it, that then it has no value. That in somehow we have always to think that if my voice doesn't count enough, so it's no idea. But of course in democratic system, nobody can say that if not my voice is that enough, because we are together, but we do it together. So I have not solved the problem. I hope that somebody else will do it, but we have had also the very encouraging examples that, for instance, in Finnish elections was yesterday, that the biggest amount of the votes ever got a young left-minded lady who has spoken very, very openly all of this. But just a few months earlier, when she was trying to become a president, so it was very, very low profile. I mean that at least I'm hopeful that perhaps also in other countries, the people have started thinking that they have a value and they had to make a decision, but then also to take a responsibility whether you have voted or if you have not voted and what you have done. Sorry, no one answer.
Thank you. We come back again to collective action and responsibility, but also mindful of Kate's point that nature is its own return on investment, and that's something we should keep at the back of our minds. But I think now is a good time to wrap up this second segment of the panel and to open the floor to our attendees here, lest you drift away, and you can pose questions or offer comments to our panelists here based on our conversation. And I do believe that we have probably, yes, we've got someone with a microphone for anyone who has a question that they'd like to ask. Yes, we've got one attendee ready there.
Hi, good morning. Kate, can you hear me? Good. Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a fan of Donut Economics. I heard for the first time in 2012 when I was in Rio, and you were there as well, like explaining to us about this concept. When you talk about growth, and then you mentioned that GDP is actually not in your book, you said that GDP is not a good measure of progress. I agree with this, but I'm wondering, how do you think we could possibly advocate it to companies, to businesses, to big companies? I'm not talking about small companies or mediocre companies, but like companies that are richer than many countries in the world, for example. Because I could imagine that it will be, I mean, in their discussion, let's say sales, regular meeting, yearly meeting, they will still talk about, oh, we reached this point. I think it's still weird to me that they will be talking about, oh, okay, let's not increase our income, let's say next year. So what do you think? Like, how do you think we could possibly advocate this successfully to the companies? Thank you.
Great question, Daniel, thank you. And that meeting in 2012, if you heard me in Rio, that was really when I think the paradigm started to change. That was the Rio Plus 20 conference, when we began it was actually the foundation of thinking about the Sustainable Development Goals, and that paradigm began to change. So that was 12 years ago. So here we are, we're moving, but not fast enough. On companies, big question. For me, the important thing about working with companies and changing the way companies impact in the world is not going to happen at the design of their products, the things that they make. They often want to say, look, we made this phone, this clothing, it's more sustainable, it's more ethical, that's wonderful. But what's really going to determine whether or not business can be part of a transformed future is the deep design of the company itself. And there are 5 design traits. Here they are. Right? You can ask this of any company, in fact, any organization. You can ask this of a university, of a city government, but let's talk companies right now. So the first one, what is the purpose of this company? Why does it even exist in the world? What is it in service of in life? What are its networks of relationship? Its employees, its customers, its suppliers, its industry allies. Is it building a constructive, respectful relationship, or is it exploitative? How is this company governed? Who is in the room when decisions get made? Do future generations have a voice in the governance of this company? Does nature have a voice in the governance? Do the workers of the company? What are the metrics of success? Is it the quarterly returns, or does the company take seriously its carbon impact? How is this company owned? Now we're getting deep, right? I call this corporate psychotherapy. The deeper we go, the more profound it gets. So how is the company owned? Is it owned by shareholders, by venture capital, by a family for 300 years? Is it owned by the state? Is it owned by its own employees? Or is it steward-owned, it's self-sovereign? All of these ownership designs will have an impact on, guess what lies at the bottom? Finance. Where does the money that makes this company succeed come from? Does it come from sales? Does it come from share issue? Does it come from venture capital? Because where that money comes from will determine what that money expects and extracts and what will get reinvested. So how much of the profits that the company creates are extracted for the owners of the company, i.e. the shareholders or the venture capital, and how much is reinvested in the purpose because of the way the company's been designed. To me, if we redesign companies, and indeed all of our institutions, so that finance and ownership is aligned to be in service of purpose of regenerative and distributive futures, so that business becomes a vehicle, rather than a vehicle for extracting the maximum wealth, a vehicle for transformation. Yes, it generates some return for its owners, but not in a way that is extracting the core of the value that it's creating. So for me, this is at the heart of the way we talk about business and donor economics. I would love to hear what the others in the panel think about how we need to transform business to make this work.
Thank you for that excellent question, by the way. So, Riyong, what do you think of that particular? And thank you so much, Kate, by the way, for that crash course in that concept. It was wonderful. Riyong, what are your comments?
I wish I had a little thing here to say, here are my 5. Unfortunately, I don't. I mean, I think the key point for me is the metrics with which we use to measure basically progress and success and you know, wealth for that matter. I think the dominant paradigm that we've had is one where, you know, the more that we can accumulate money, then that would be then the sign of success, right? And I think this businesses, corporations, money is not a means to an end, money is the end type of thing. So, and I think this is what I'm saying is we're sensing that the paradigm is shifting because we're starting to explore things such as different types of metrics. You know, the International Panel for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services released a report on different types of values, the values assessment, where they basically acknowledged that there are very different ways that we attribute value to different types of resources. And I think this really points in its very essence to a need to ensure that those who are actually making decisions actually can encompass some of the diversity of worldviews that are out there. And it's not just designed by potentially, you know, what came out of the Industrial Revolution. And you can see some of the words here, you know, this idea of colonialism and race, patriarchy, racism. These types of ideas, I think, are starting to surface because we're starting to realize that the institutions we've created are potentially just reinforcing these dimensions which want to promote, you know, accumulation of money as an end in itself, and not necessarily looking at value in very broad and diverse terms. And I think one of the key, you know, ways forward, at least, is really ensuring that we have captured the diversity of worldviews, especially in places of decision.
Absolutely. President Harjonen, what are your thoughts on broadening the view from one that is focused entirely on money and capital and return on capital to something that looks at value and looks at purpose and looks at contribution to the broader society, the social contract, so to speak?
So, of course, I'm very, very strongly, I have openness in my background, so starting on my own background and starting as a union lawyer in Finland. So I'm very much for the more collective thinking and social justice and so on. But what I see now, the political trends. So what I'm more pessimistic is that the polarization has become more and more part of today. today's politics, and that's why I think that's why I speak so much about the cooperation and compromises and so, because I don't think that we can, like in old days, thought that one generation can be used if the future will be better. It doesn't work. We see it all over in the planet that it doesn't work. Every generation, every individual has their own value. But I think that the changes are possible. If we take the energy issue, sometimes even the bad things can support, like the wars, that we don't believe anymore in the same way the oil and other such kind of methods. But the other thing is that how we create a better system, because renewable energy can be also based either in democratic or undemocratic way. The renewable energies, especially the locals, can also help the regional dictators to be more independent. So we can see always that every system has a good side and bad side, and we who decide, we have to think also the bad sides. And in that way, I'm very strongly thinking that the people, we the people, like we say in UN, that we have to take our responsibility. And I take two examples. Energy was one, and the second is the textile industry. That the new younger generation nowadays, they are happy to tell that this is from the second-hand shop, or this is in such kind of the system. But they still think that I have the right all the time to consume more. Then if we can think that we don't need more textile, we don't need more shoes or clothes, is the basic question. How do you take it is a second question. And of course you can share the burden in a way that I say that this is your old one. But it's not the whole issue, that we should think that how much we need, and that's why I come to, there is a capitalism and greed. The greed is very important too, and you can do it in different systems. But I do hope more collective thinking, and also the more thinking the value of the nature, the human resources and so on, not only the money. But I don't think that I still have a majority, not in Europe, not globally, and the situation becomes worse and worse if the big so-called old weighing developing countries, all the best for them and their economical success, but if they will get a similar type of the people we have been, so this will be a problem.
So once again, coming back to the idea of sufficiency, what is enough? When do we know that we have enough? Now, I know that we're coming very close up on time to end this session. President Halonen is very happy, but I'm willing to take one more question. If yes, one question, and we'll have very brief responses from our panel before we close out the session. Brief question and brief responses.
Yes, thank you. Fabiola Sosa from Mexico. Do you think that we could have the same environmental rules throughout the world instead of capital looking for where to make more profits at the expense of the environment and the population in the global south? Can we expect that the global north foster knowledge and technology transference for achieving faster green transitions?
Wow, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes.
It was quite an earful.
Yes. Do you think that we could have the same environmental rules throughout the world instead of capital looking for where to make more profits at the expense of the environment and the population in the global south? Can we expect that the global north foster knowledge and technology transference for achieving faster green transitions?
All right, I think you cheated a little bit because that was actually two questions. So let's just take the first one. And the first one had to do with, can we have the same environmental rules universally? Did I get that right? Yes. Okay. Rion.
Yeah, I'd love to answer that question.
Brilliant.
I mean, environmental rules, I think we almost have to have the same environmental rules because, as I had said before, you know, planetary boundaries are what they are, and they are about the global population. Rules in general, however, I think that's where it becomes really difficult because we deal with countries, we deal with communities, we deal with different cultures, we deal with very different social, religious, cultural contexts. And transitions mean different things for different contexts. And I think that's also something, the third dimension that I was mentioning is something that needs to enter that discussion. How do we ensure a dignified, a just transition that ensures that we're respecting that particular transition towards sustainability? So environmental rules, yes, I think generally more the social rules on how to get there. We will need to be very sensitive to the context of the global south, the global north, but also within these huge areas because of such diversity of conditions.
Absolutely. Kate, your final intervention in 60 seconds or less.
One, I'm very happy to say I'm wearing a second-hand top from a charity shop. Not even only the younger generation do this. Even us 50-year-olds do this too. I love wearing second-hand clothes. I'll answer the beginning of the second question. I heard it was framed as, can we expect the global north to make this? No, do not expect it. If you're expecting it, you're like, I think it's coming soon. I'm just waiting for it to happen. There's no way we should expect it. We have to strive for it. And I know the woman asking the question knows this, right? But I'm just saying for us all, we have to strive for it. It's not just going to happen. The power of capital and capital's demand for its own return is incredibly strong. And that's why we're all here in this conference as part of a big community internationally who are striving to bring about a common understanding of the living world, rules that are universal but equitable in the way that Rion has just said, recognizing history, but that puts nature and life before the design of capital. We redesigned finance to be aligned with life.
Thank you so much, Kate. President Halonen.
Yeah. So, So I would say that, of course, the equality between the planetary citizens is very, very important, and we have to start from that. But then, of course, the solutions can be different in different parts of the globe. And this is a bit more difficult to solve because people think very easily those who are the closest for them, like we now here in this planetary, in this session. And then we should also allow that the others will do their solutions. So it's their duty, it's their right. But they should fit in the planetary boundaries. And how to put these two things together. I know that I have spoken already here too much about the UN. But if we should do it today, I think we couldn't make a better success what our grandparents made. And that's why let's try to make it better. Don't say that that's nonsense. Let's try to support international thinking and rule-based global system, because that's the system we have to create the trust, the confidence to each other. And you might say that I have blue eyes. Yes, I have, and I'm proud of that. Because otherwise we don't make the united world. So I hope that you everywhere do your right and duty where you are, because we cannot do it instead of you.
Thank you so much. I think an excellent point on which to close off this session. I'm very grateful to the members of the panel for sharing their time, their insight, their wisdom, and these reflections with us. Thank you so much, President Tarja Halonen, Rion Kim, and thank you, Kate Raworth. And I would like to thank you all, actually all of our speakers who were here this morning, some of whom have left us, but that's okay, but especially our hosts here at Aalto University and Helsinki University. And I'd like to extend a special thanks to the hard-working and professional organizing committee who've been toiling diligently behind the scenes, even though we haven't noticed them all. Thank you all so much. I just want to close out this session with a few words. I want to emphasize that it's important for all of us, the collective action that President Tarja Halonen was talking about, and broadening the views and envisioning different kinds of paradigms so that we can live the good life that we've been dreaming about here today, and think about how we can do so without causing further harm or disruption to our finely balanced natural ecosystems. And why should we do that? This brings me back to something someone said to me long ago. Everything concrete, everything significant, everything we can see and touch and feel in our lives once began as an idea. It was a vision, it was a dream. So let's dare to dream. And let's continue the dreaming in the coffee break. Thank you so much.